Welcome to Barcelona, and thank you very much for inviting me for this presentation. I'm going to try my best. I will do it, I promise. I hope. If I don't make it, tell me time, because what I'm going to show you is a very long presentation, so I'm going to do it super fast, okay? But I think, well, this is scary man. This is my father, okay? And he's my partner, and well, I am his partner, and we are a family business. We are a small company. Our name is OAB, or Arhitekture in Barcelona. But well, as I was saying, we are a family company, family business. This is Carlos. This is my brother-in-law, Xavier Martigali. This is my sister, Lucia, and myself some years ago. And this is my mom. She's an interior designer. So I think that what is best, what I usually do is I explain you a little bit the story. First of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit who we are very fast in terms of organization of the company, because we are a small company and we do not want to grow. This is something that we decided some years ago. You know, now we are in this crisis, but about 5 years ago, Spain was in a boom. And we had lots of commissions, lots of projects, and we arrived to a size in which we were about 40 architects. So basically what Carlos, my dad, has in the years has learned how to manage, and I think this is very important to explain our office, is that we have a group of architects, young architects, that they collaborate with us. So we are about 20 people in the studio, but we can manage to do very big projects like airports or also like high-speed train stations, etc., that you're going to see. And the reason why is that instead of growing and making a bigger company, what we did is we maintain the core small. We are the family members, the small company, also with Nuria Ayala, who is our manager, our project director, our architect that has worked with us. But then also these other architects, like Juan Trias de Vez, or Joan Bernal, Elena Mateo, or Alberto Peñin, they have worked with my dad, with my father, for about 15 years. So they are like young architects, about 40 to 50 years old, that they know very well how to work. But instead of keeping them in our studio, they open their own studios, they do their own jobs, their own works, but we collaborate with them. And some of them, almost 80% of their work is still with us. So we have this kind of satellite strategy that I think it works very well, because they have their own independence. And another thing we do is, like, you know, the projects have usually 4 stages, no? Like a concept, schematic, design development, site construction. So the first 2, we always do them internally. We do them in our office, the concept design and the schematic design. For at least 50% of the projects, we do that, and then in the design development, which is tough work, and also these people are very well trained with my dad, so they work on that, and they have a weekly process, weekly reviews, and they come to the studio. We work with them every week, and they are from Barcelona. Also, we collaborate with international studios, and we have now different projects abroad. I am sorry I'm not going to be able to show you what is it that we're working right now, because of confidentiality, but the truth is, with all these changes in the world, we are working now very much internationally. We're doing a building in Miami, in the United States, in Morocco, in Turkey. We're doing two big projects, and also we are working in Norway and France, etc., Italy. But anyway, what I'm going to tell you now is the story. This is a little story. This is my dad in 1971. This is the island of Ibiza. He was a little bit hippie, and well, he was very hippie. And this is he with José Miguel de Prada Pool. You know, in Ibiza in 1971, there was this big event. It was called the Instant City. They worked together with this engineer that he was specialized in pneumatic structures. So they created a kind of city. It was like a Woodstock, you know. It had everything that Woodstock has, but music. There was no music, but all the rest was there. So, well, they did this city, and I show this project always because it's important to think that from his very youth, like, he was an architect also that was a dreamer, and I was always trying to make and innovate. So I would define my father as a person, as an architect, that is in between these two worlds, the world of of like utopia, the world of trying to find something new and discovery, and then also the realistic world in which you have to work for society and do buildings for clients, etc. So anyway, as you can see, the trajectory of my father was very constant. He has not been one of these architects that suddenly had a huge project, that he won a huge competition and started doing, and suddenly he became famous or something. You see, from 1971 to 1982, it was a very, very like constant evolution in which he started with interior design. He was doing dental clinics, he was doing shops, like, you know, storefronts. With my mom is an interior designer. They had 2-3 people in the studio. So it was not until 1982 that he opened his studio, like he got a real studio, and he started having bigger projects. I would summarize the trajectory of my father in what I would say like 4 stages. And the first stage is typical from a complete, like a normal architect, like anybody. Like there was this, let's call it bourgeois family. It was a wealthy family in the north of Spain, in the Costa Brava. I don't know if you know about the Costa Brava. Yeah. But in this coast, there was this family that they trusted this young architect to do their vacation house, their weekend and holidays house. So he did this house, and then he was successful with this house, and then other architects. But he was imagining a city where all the circulation of motor circulation would be in the streets, and the pedestrian would be inside the interiors of the block. So what he did, he recuperated those interiors of the block, Carlos, and he wanted to kind of evoke and try to make a like reinterpretation of that idea. So he put these gardens inside. He opened here, creating this kind of pedestrian rambla, and also he did a reinterpretation of the corner of the chamfer, accessing the houses from this corner and having access to the different houses. Then, I don't know if you realized the lecture before me, he mentioned that the competition from El Cairo started in 1985. I don't know if you guys were born or there, but you can think like some projects, they last so many years. I mean, they start in 1985 and even today they're still not finished. So this is another case. This is the Jardín Botánico, the botanical garden in Barcelona, which we won the competition in 1988. And because of budget, it was very difficult. For the Olympic Games in 1992, they just prepared for cross, for hiking. But the botanical garden was not finished until the year 2000. In fact, I would say that the botanical garden is still not finished. We're still working on new projects and still defining it. So think about it. It's been like almost 24 years of a project being evolving. So this is the first day that the construction was finished and everything. And I will explain a little bit more about it, about this project later. And this is how it has been evolved. Then Carlos got to work in the Olympic Games in the 4 main areas of the Olympic Games. Like the 4 main, you know, they built this ring, this highway that goes around. That was very, very important for the city. And in the entrance of the Diagonal, in Montjuic, with the Botanical Garden, the Olympic Village, and then the Vall d'Hebron. So he got to do these 4 buildings. This is the hotel where all the prime ministers and all the governments and all the important people were during the Olympic Games, because the Hotel Ars was supposed to be finished in 1992, but it was not finished. So they had all the important personalities here. It's a very. It brings this concept of the American lobby, the big lobby. It was a new concept here in Spain. We didn't have any hotel like this. It was 16 stories, and he did a work that I will talk about it later, in which there is starting to be some sort of a complex geometry that works in this space. As I was saying, also the Vall d'Hebron, this used to be years before a kind of marginated neighborhood in the city with these typical blocks, typical construction blocks. And what he did, he wanted to respect that typology, but also create a big piazza, a big square where the children could be safe and they could play, etc. And also like all the commercial activities with the supermarket and all the shops. And also he proposed to do this road, because by doing this building, he proposed to the city council to do this kind of road that connects to the city and gives a better connection from this neighborhood to the city, so it helps for less margination in a way. Then after the Olympic Games, a kind of crisis came in 1993. It's not the crisis we have, but it's not as bad. But then these architects that did big buildings, they had a lot of experience, they gained a lot of experience, but then they kind of went back to do smaller buildings, but with much more experience. And I think that is very good too, because then it's what I call the stage of my dad of kind of manifesto buildings, because he had a lot of knowledge of how he wanted to do things. He was very ambitious on how to work with the details. He had a strong control of the construction, etc. So here is when Carlos started to become more mature, and he started thinking, many ideas, many I would say, many values arise. One of them, what for us in our studio, what is very important is that Carlos has always told us that architecture has 4 legs, and this is what we work with. It's like the 4 ingredients of architecture, which is light, materials, landscape, and systems. Systems understood as the social activity of a building, as the programmatic activity of a building. So with these 4 legs, we have to always work. And we are a company, we're not a company, we are a studio that we do not negate the values of modern movement. We think that modern movement is still valid nowadays in many ways. Sometimes because of the complexity of a project, because of the complexity of the site, the clients, or the cultural inheritance, sometimes the modern values are not enough. And that is when we have to work with more complex geometries. But we believe that the values of modern movements, such as abstraction, rigorosity, and severity, these are still valid nowadays. We have to be abstract, we have to work with abstract ideas, we have to be very severe with what we say, and we have to be very, very rigorous. And this was our inheritance from modern movement. So anyway, as you can see, materials, light, so he was using exterior wood panels, aluminium, and the white brick, as I was mentioning before. The organization of this building is kind of, it's kind of innovative. This was a client that they were different companies, and that what they wanted is to be autonomous sometimes, and sometimes work together. So it's almost like different organs that when they work together, they can work as a superior organism. So there is categories and levels of organization of this building. So even if it's like stack boxes, they work in and then like volumes like this one, used for stairs, services, etc., can be the joint between these 2 buildings. Then this is a house for my uncle. This is the first house for my uncle that my dad did with his first wife. Now we did the second house with the second wife, because the first wife kept the first house. So I'm gonna explain you about it. But well, you can imagine how special it is to do a house for your own brother. He's a fashion designer. Fashion photographer, sorry. And well, I'm going to talk a little bit later with the new house. This is the fitness center, which is next to the Hotel Rey Juan Carlos. It was built some years later. And here it was prohibited to build overground. So he had the idea of saying, okay, we have a terrain, we have a plot, we cannot build anything on top, but they want to do a fitness center, so let me work with that idea. And he presented this kind of crater of a volcano. And underground, it's a very special place to work for an architect, I think, because it's kind of tricky. You can play with perception of things. Like you see these, they look like walls. Well, in fact, they are not walls, they are beams. But from outside, they look like walls, retaining walls or something, like division walls. But inside, the space is open. And what it does, it creates like a circular space around this little lake. And what it does, it's like the light enters. This is a lake with white stone, so the light spreads, and it spreads around the building. And also another thing he did, which I think is very interesting, is he moved those walls. These beams turn into walls here at the end, and he elongated them enough so that this is a very small lake. So in order to avoid the claustrophobic effect of being underground, what he did with these walls, he elongated them so that you don't see the end of the lake. And that is, I like it a lot, because this is what we architects can work, which is perception of space. We can kind of become kind of magicians. We can try to trick, and I think this is very important in architectural experiences in a building. Like, the typical effects when you enter a building and the space is compressed, and suddenly the space opens up and you have a skylight on top of you. Architectural experience, I think, is very important. I mean, it's the most important thing in architecture when somebody enters in the building and walks around the building and goes down the stairs and all of that. So I'm really attached to this project because I think it brings a lot of that. Another thing is that after that, the Catalunya Convention Centre. This was a very complex building, 40,000 square, by a long-distance relative from Madrid, an architect, also called Ferrater. And when we were called to do this building, it was a big challenge because this is a renovated building from the 60s. It was a headquarters for Martini Rossi, you know the company. So, and then Jean-Charles Decaux, which is an urban furniture, very important urban furniture brand, they wanted to do their headquarters for Spain and the Latin American countries. So we kind of reinterpreted that modern language and again work with lights, with materials, etc. This is the Botanical Institute. Here he's using the same materials as in the botanical garden, but completely different geometrical strategy in a way, because what he wanted, this is on top of the garden, this is looking at the long distance views, long distance landscape, and connection with the long distance views. He wanted to do this like huge window, like very long, straight, so here the building doesn't move, and it's the landscape that needs to adapt to the building. So the building is static, and the landscape is dynamic. Whether in the botanical garden, downstairs, it's completely the opposite. It's the architecture that adapts to the landscape. But again, he's using the materials as a way of expression. This is the high-speed train station, and for some time, this was the biggest indoor space in Europe. This is a very complex, and once again, this had to be a perfect machine. We probably won the competition because we brought a very innovative idea. It was a very big competition against the prime, like Norman Foster, Calatrava, Bofi, all of them were here. And the reason why we won, I think it was because we presented an idea that was very strong. In the beginning, it was risky. We said we wanted to have the parking spaces below the trains. And this can be thought as maybe a radical idea that could be very problematic because you have maybe terrorists and also you have structural issues. You have to put parking spaces. But why not? I mean, the reason why is that high-speed train stations, they need to compete in Europe. They need to compete against airports. And the reason why we want high-speed is because we gain time, because these train stations are in the center of the city. And so if you put parking spaces outside a building, then once again, you're going to have to move, you're going to have to walk, etc. So what we did is we demonstrated them that we could have a train station in which you can park your car and with an electronic ticket, you can be in the seat in your train in 45 seconds. And that's why we won the competition. Not because we had an amazing proposal, because other architects had, and then after that, we started working with light, with materials, but the efficiency of the building was primordial. You have to think, Zaragoza is a very, very important spot in Spain. It's like a hub in high-speed train because it connects with Bilbao, with Valencia, with Madrid, Barcelona, and France. So you can put two high-speed trains on top of, next to each other. And then we solved all the problems, and we ended up seeing that it was not such a problem in structure, and all of these functionalities were solved. So it worked. It's like a 21st century high-speed train station. It's no longer the 19th century train stations that are typical. This almost works like an airport. It has an arrivals and departures, like terminals almost. Like this would be the arrivals, and on the other side. So you enter the building from one side if you're leaving, or if you're arriving, you exit the building from the other side. So it's quite complex, and it's no longer the typical airport. I showed this building right after because while we were doing the high-speed train station, we were doing this very small building in an interior of the block. You know, the City Council of Barcelona, after the Olympic Games, they got this idea of like recuperating, even before, they got the idea of recuperating the interiors of the block. Because, and bring back this idea of Centar, of making gardens inside the interiors of the block. And then they saw the opportunity to also do facility buildings. It's something very interesting that I recommend you study and you get more information about, because I think it's one of the initiatives in this city that has been more successful. Because you know, Barcelona doesn't have really good parks. I mean, has Ciutadella Park, but it doesn't have Central or Hyde Park, etc. So this is a way to recuperate the grid inside the city, to recuperate these interiors of the road. There's a big effort doing that, and there's lots of successful projects today. So well, this was one of them. My sister Lucia, she designed this building. This is so we were doing this small building and doing a high-speed train station. And I have to tell you that the intellectual intensity that we put in bigger buildings and small buildings is the same. So even though we could work with bigger scale, we were still working with the same intellectual intensity with small buildings. We cannot ignore that. So this is a social services center, and the people that come inside here, they have problems with drugs, you know, there are children that are badly treated. So people don't want to be seen inside the building when they go because they are ashamed. So the building is very hermetic. So during daytime, when the building is open to the public, this kind of aluminium, this metal grid doesn't allow the light to get out from the building, so you don't see what's happening inside. But at nighttime, when the building opens up, this is a public building, so it needs to show itself. So at nighttime, when the building opens up, you can see the interior. This is the interior of the garden that we also designed. This is an old medieval road that connected the city. So we recuperated, we found a drawing from the Middle Ages that was showing this path. So it's a path that comes from behind, and what it tries to show is that a city has multiple layers of history. So even though we are inside a block of Cerdà, before the block of Cerdà, there was this path that was going to the center of the city in Barcelona. This is another convention center. We could say it's like the evolution of the first one. This is the Castellón Convention Center, again using white concrete. He got very experienced using white concrete. But this building is much more complex, because remember the first building that were boxes next to each other, like volumes next to each other? Well, here is already more three-dimensional. From outside, it looks very simple. It looks like a classic temple. But then, when you start putting these boxes, these complex auditoriums, spaces, there's lots of different spaces here. It's a convention and auditorium in Castellón and convention center. So suddenly he started working three-dimensionally. It looks like a classic temple, but and also it looks like there is no light entering. And that is when the magic occurs. That thing I was telling you about the architectural experience. Once you enter in this building, you start discovering openings, you start discovering windows, skylights, views to the mountains, etc. And for instance, this is the auditorium. This was a big challenge. This was we worked with an acoustic engineer, Engineer Lau, a very prestigious engineer, internationally known. He's from Spain. So he's a good friend of ours, and so we told him, look, we have a question. We wonder why do all the auditoriums in the world are symmetric when all the orchestras are not symmetric. You put the violins on one side, the basses on one side, the trumpets, or So we told him that, and we told him, like, would it be possible to design acoustically very efficient an asymmetric auditorium? And he accepted the challenge, so we proposed him the design, and he worked with us on all the formulas for acoustics. It's very important. So, well, an anecdote is the day of the opening, I was sitting here, my father was here with all the politicians and all that, and there was a Russian, I think he was Russian pianist, and in the middle of the concert, he stopped playing, and he was like, wow, what's going on? So he stopped playing, he stood up, and he said, he needed some translation, and he said, I want to say that the acoustics of this auditorium are amazing. I never heard myself so well in such an auditorium. And then I remember I was here, and I did like, thank God. I thought that he was going to stand up and leave because the acoustics were very bad. So this is an anecdote, but this is important, I think, for the role of an architect, because we have to assume this role in our lives that is sometimes very risky, and maybe your life depends on you have to always be at the edge of the cliff, and you could fall. And this is very hard, and this is something that we need to resist. You know that there's architects that have died the day of the opening of their building. You know, in Austria, Vienna, there was I can't remember his name, but he had a heart attack the day of the opening because he saw all these people on top of the slab, and he thought the building was going to collapse, so he died. So it's a sad story. But that day, I think my dad thought that he was going to die. Anyway, so this is another part. We also do landscape. That's another thing we do. We don't want to be as a specialist architect. We do everything. We do from urban design to furniture design. We do landscape design. We do single family houses. We do hospitals. We do airports, etc. But what we do in order to do that, we need the collaboration of other architects that are more specialized. Like for instance, we had done a hospital in Bilbao, and it was recently finished, and we worked with one of the best hospital architects in Spain, Casares. So, and Luis Dominguez as the local architect as well. Anyway, this is a park in Granada near the Alhambra, and it's next to the Alhambra, and it's inspired in these Arabic gardens, you know, with the water, etc. I don't know if you have been in Alhambra. I recommend for any architect to go to Alhambra and visit it. And this is the Royal Golf Club. It's one of the most important golf clubs in Europe, in Spain. It has 18 holes on one side and 18 holes on the other side, designed by Greg Norman. And this building works like a hinge, you know, a hinge, like a door. It works like an axe, no? It's in the middle of the landscape and it cuts the landscape. And we use the program to divide the landscape. So we did the clubhouse, this is the swimming pool pavilions, and this is the kindergarten for the children of the members of the club. And the building works very efficiently as well. It works upstairs. It has only 2 levels. Upstairs, it's all the entertaining, like the ballrooms, the restaurant, all the activities of relaxation, like playrooms to play cards, etc. They are all upstairs. And downstairs, you have the locker rooms. So it works very well with the landscape in terms of as a machine, because you can go spend the morning playing on one side. You can play the morning, then you go back, you take a shower, you go upstairs, you have a lunch, then you go downstairs, and you can spend the afternoon on the other side. So this has worked very well. But once again, like the materials, landscape, you know, the relationship with landscape, with light. You see the white brick here. This white brick is always accompanying my family for many years. Like it has been evolving. We have been doing it with the manufacturer. We have been doing better and better. Okay? Now you can reinforce it. You can make reinforced walls. You can make big spans, etc. So relationship with materials. And here I'm gonna take 1 minute to explain you this thing about modern movement. Why do we accept modern movement in a way? You see, this is the typical Eixample, this is the typical ensanche buildings. Most of the facades in the Eixample are like this one on this side or this one. No? So this is what we did a reinterpretation of that. You can see here there is like basically the materials are stone, wood, glass and metal for the balconies. So we did the same. We used stone, wood, glass and metal. And more or less 50% of the spaces are empty and 50% of the spaces are full. So we did the same. But one thing we eliminated because it was useless and didn't have any sense anymore. It's this balcony from 19th century or something that it's no longer used. It's almost like a very sad place where they leave the very sad bird, or they leave, it's almost like an exterior closet. And also it has this Latin connotation of, oh, look who she's going with, no? Which we didn't like, no? So instead of that, we proposed a very practical thing, which is like it's like 30, 40 centimeters, like onion skin, like an onion skin of different layers where you can clean the glass, it helps for maintenance, and then you can move the panels, the wooden panels, etc. Because another thing is that this building is, Ensanche has one of the best things of Ensanche is that it's mixed use. It's amazing. You have offices, residences, all sort like hotels, everything, no? It's in this. But then something that can happen is that 25 meters from your house, you have another facade of offices. So sometimes you don't want to be seen from the interior. So what we proposed is, okay, if you want to open up and have the light entering and the views, etc., perfect. But if you also want to keep your privacy and you don't want the people in front of you to see you, then you can close it and you can have this privacy again. This is our office. That's where we have our office here. And here is the turning point of the lecture in a way, because yes, modern movement is valid. We do not negate the values of modern movement, but there are some projects like this one. I'm going to use 2 examples to explain you this difference. There are some projects that to just do pure volumes, you know, Euclidean geometries, etc., it's not enough, because there are so many things to take care, and this was a very complex project. First of all, look at the mountain of Montjuic. Like the mountain of Montjuic for Barcelona is a very special mountain for us, for the citizens of the city. For us, we used to call it the magic mountain. But in a way, not being too critical, but if we have to be a little bit critical, during the years, the mountain was used almost as a place that it was a leftover. So they said, we have to do an international exhibition, 1929. Where do we put it? Where do we have space? It needs to be in the center. Oh, we have Montjuic. Okay, let's put it in Montjuic. So they put the international fair, the World Fair, they put it here. Then the Olympic Games came, the Olympic Games. Oh, we need to put lots of pavilions, they need to be in the center. Where do we have space? Oh, let's put it in Montjuic. So poof, they put it in Montjuic. So also the museum. So I don't feel happy about that, because it's like disconnected buildings in a mountain that it's losing its identity, because you're putting different things. So it was very important for Carlos, because at the end it looks almost like it was bombing, no? It was like a bomb mountain. So Carlos in the beginning, he said, I want to recuperate the identity of the mountain. And what is the way to recuperate the identity of the mountain? Is to keep the topography, the natural topography. This mountain has a topography, so let's not try to move it. Let's not make big holes. Let's not make big movements of land. So his first strategy was that. Then again, it's a very complex project. It's very contemporary, because it is the first time that he had to face working with many different disciplines. You know, the work of architects nowadays is very complex, because you have to bring all these other interdisciplinary teams, that they are engineers, acoustics, lighting, and I don't know, project managers. You have so many people. So this was probably the first one that he had to face. He had to work with landscape architects, with botanists, with biologists, with topographers, with engineers. So what he did is, okay, I'm gonna make it almost like a game. I'm gonna make like a rule. And what all the disciplines understand? They understand geometry. Geometry is a universal language. So we can all speak in that language, and we can all understand each other with geometry. So what he did is he proposed a triangular grid, which is, I have to explain it deeply, but if you want, I can, in the questions, if you want to ask me more about it, we can talk about it. But he proposed a triangular grid, that what it did is that you put this artificial grid on top of the natural terrain, and then you adapt the landscape a little bit. Because the biggest issue is that the botanical garden has 18 meters from the lowest point to the highest point. And the idea was to build a park that when you walk, there is less than 8% slope. So all the paths, all the principal paths, they are 8% slope, so that a handicap, or also like older people, they can walk. And then you suddenly, you don't realize, you start walking and suddenly you are upstairs, you're in the upper level, and you can see, you have walked 18 meters and it's been very easy. So by doing that, you need the triangular grid. So, but the strongest message I think I could tell you here is that, look at this drawing. This is the drawing that we presented they presented in 1988 for the competition. That's the drawing that won the competition. That's the first drawing. And this is the drawing of the botanical garden as it is today, as it is built. If you look at this drawing, and you look at this other drawing, there's no lines that are the same. The lines of the botanical garden, everything is different, but the soul of the project is still the same. You can see the identity is still kept. So this is very important, because you have a geometry, you have some rules, and the important is that there's going to be lots of people that are going to attack your building. They're going to come and they're going to bring functional and arguments, and they're going to say, look, you cannot do this way, because we need water here, we need to put these plants, we need to put Australian ecosystem here, and you need to change that path. And he said, okay, let's change that path. Let's make it with the topographers. So it's free. There's a level of freedom in this geometry that allows to transformations and mutations and this is not modern movement. This is already much more contemporary idea. It adapts to the needs of the project, but it doesn't lose its soul. And this is something very important, I think, nowadays. So basically, what is very important is that when you're doing a project, the most important thing for an architect is that from the first idea to the final result, the distance needs to be the closest as, the shortest as possible, so that you don't see the negative evolution of a project. You have a wonderful idea. There are some architects, very well-known architects, that when they present their ideas, they are amazing. You see the rendering or you see the model, and then they don't have the capacity to keep that soul, to keep that strength to the very end. And when you see it built, you say, oh, it's a pity, no? It's great conceptual building, but then taken into reality, it's not. And my opinion is that a real architect must achieve that, must achieve going from the beginning to the end with the same soul. Anyway, so there's a lot of technical things. So these are documents prepared by the botanist in order to organize the different species. So with this triangular system, it was very useful for them because they could divide in triangles and they could start locating the different species, etc. And this is the evolution. And here, this is during construction. So one thing he did, which I think is very beautiful, it's kind of almost of a romantic idea, but it's not really because of romance, it was because of practicity also. He said, look, I want to change, we have to change the topography in order to create these paths, but let's respect the mountain as much as possible. So one of the things that is very expensive in construction is to bring the trucks and take the load and bring the sand, the soil outside, and then bring more, and then bring out. So it's very expensive. It can take months of trucks going in, going out. You have to pay licenses, etc. So he said, he told to the topographers, and he said, okay, we are going to design together the paths, but I'm going to put certain rules. And one rule is that if you take a little bit of land from here, you have to put it somewhere else. So what they did, they saved a lot of money, because what they did is instead of hiring 10 trucks every month or something, they bought 2 trucks that never leave the site. And these trucks, they were taking land from here, bringing it there. So it's almost like, it's a very romantic idea, because no sand, no nothing has left this site. So the mountain is still the same mountain. We haven't taken anything from that mountain. We just move it, it's almost like makeup. We just have done, with these eyebrows, we have just done a little bit of makeup to the mountain in order to do these paths of the 8%. So this is the original idea, I think, is this kind of retaining walls that are either convex or concave. So you take a little bit of land and you put it there. And suddenly this path, they turn into piazzas, and it's very Mediterranean. Suddenly these paths, they become bigger, and then you have a space to sit down, to look at the views, etc. So I talk too much, so I have to go faster. Anyway, the other idea is the 4 legs of architecture. I said materiality, light, systems, and landscape. There is a 5th leg. There is the number 5 leg, which is the hidden leg. It's the invisible. It doesn't exist, which is time. Time is the 5th leg of architecture. If you want to be very good architects, you have to look at your buildings in 20 years, and they have to remain as they were in the beginning. You have to maintain buildings. And another thing is also time can transform a building, or can transform architecture in a very good way. So this is the day that the construction finished, but it is the day actually that the garden started being built. So here the architecture is the structure of the park, and the plants that started with just very few plants, they are just the ornament. But with time, with this 5th leg, we wanted to invert that condition. We wanted to go the other way around. So with years, the architecture has become the ornament, has become the anecdota. It's not important. The architecture in this park is not important. What is important is the plants. So suddenly architecture starts disappearing, structure starts disappearing, and the plants start appearing. And suddenly now you just have some little spots of architecture, little details, but then the plants start growing, and they become the real protagonists, the real character of this park. So if you now go after 10 years, after 12 years, when it was finished, you will see a completely different. And I hope that in 8 more years or 10 more years, we can say that the garden is completed, because everything has grown and it's like a forest already. Anyway, so this is another project to explain about this idea of this more contemporary way of approaching a project. This is the city of Benidorm. I don't know if you guys know about the city. They call it the Manhattan of Spain. It's a touristic city. It's like very hedonism. Lots of Germans, British come here. It's a city that has 1 million tourists at the same time sometimes. So it was very much criticized in the 60s, in the 70s, and it has always been very much criticized as a very speculative urban model, as a very bad way of doing urban planning. But I think if you go back and you look what has happened in the coast of Spain, you know, we have learned a lesson. We have done very big mistakes. If you look at the coast of Spain, especially in the south, etc., we have destroyed the coast. We have done these phantom cities, like this first row, second row, third row condominiums of houses that they are empty 6 months of the year. You have a lot of maintenance. You have to maintain the roads, the lighting. There are security problems. You need police to look for them. And then you have like third row, fourth row. You're so far away from the city, from the sea. So I don't think this urban model is so successful. And instead of that, this one, which is much more condensed, as you can see, has respected the surroundings. So they have condensed all the density of tourism, and then in the surroundings you have more nature, etc. And then what do you have here? You have all these people that are 5 minutes walking distance from the sea, so they don't need to use the car. And at least 50% of the people here, they have nice views to the sea. So I think it's not such a bad urban model. The only problem that this model has is that it has no public space because of the speculation. So we did this competition, this international competition, to do this promenade. It's like the waterfront, the boardwalk. So we started with this idea because we were thinking of Benidorm as the hedonist city. We thought of organic, of the waves. We thought of Roberto Burle Marx from Copacabana, you know, the pedestrian walkway. All of that, Gaudi, all these urban forms, all this, we thought of all of that. So we started with this sketch, and it was a big challenge for us. We haven't worked with such complex geometries, and how were we going to build this so that it was not going to be 3 times the budget, first of all? This is another condition to be a real architect. You cannot design a building and then don't care if the building is 5 times more expensive or 3 times more expensive. Like there's very well-known architects that they do a design, and 3 years later when the building is finished, and sometimes they are public buildings that are paid by the contributors that pay their taxes, and they are 3 times the price that was initially budgeted. So we wanted to do a very challenging thing. But we wanted to keep in the budget. So we made lots of efforts in order to do that. And by doing that is about thinking a lot, and these are different documents during the process of the design. So what we thought is, okay, we need to do these double curved surfaces, we need to do this promenade, and it's very hard to do it. So how are we going to do it? So we had an engineer that was very important in the process because he was giving us advice. Juan Calvo from Madrid, he's our engineer that works in the most complex projects we do. And it's very important to always work with an engineer from the first day in the concept stages. So we told him, like, how are we going to do these double curved surfaces? And he said, it is no problem at all. I mean, we do it all the time in bridges, we have to do double curve columns that hold the columns of the bridge. So don't worry, it's not such complex. And then we found a local manufacturer that this is a family business. This guy, it's a carpenter family that they do boats. They do wooden boats. So we said, oh great, would you be able to do this? And he said, yes, of course. I've done it all my life. We can do these double curve precast elements. And another thing is that the only bad thing about prefabricated things is that they look prefabricated. So we wanted to do an idea that was going to help us to make it cheap. So we said, okay, how much money do we have to make it? We have to do it we have to do molds, molds, the positive, negative. We have to do maximum 18 molds in order to get in the budget. So we did 18 molds. But then we said, what about, instead of doing 18 molds of 20 meters each, so it's almost 200 meters, this is a 1.5 kilometer waterfront. So what about instead of having these 20 molds and using them again and again and again, and then we make this typical repetitive walkway? What about if mold number 10, that connects to mold number 11 and mold number 9, we connect it with number 3. By just doing some changes in the edge, very cheap changes, we can then start playing. So these 18 pieces, what we did is we used them, and then we took them and we mixed them. So yes, it is the same park, but it is the same walkway, but it's not the same. It always changes a little bit. So we got it to make it the budget, and then we didn't have the repetitive. So these are some construction works being done. I have to go very fast. Okay? What time is it? Okay, I have to go fast. Well, these are different documents that we were doing, and this is what I was telling you, how important it is from the initial idea, the concept idea, to the final result. No? So this is white concrete again, like with these double surfaces. Upstairs we have ceramic tile, which is local material from the area. They are very good in ceramic. We did this handrail, which is very important because, well, we like to do this. This is the real image, and this is from the Rhino Zeros, you know, this program. So I wanted to do this photo with this kind of compromission, like checking. No? So I said, let's put the Rhino, like make an elevation, and let's put the final result and see how it is, if it's similar to what we designed. And it is, so okay, good. Then we have this balustrade. I think it's nice. It also like helps you see, because you know these walkways, they put these balustrades, and when you sit down on the bench, you don't see the sea because they are made of ceramic or something. So we did a very, very thin balustrade that when you sit down, you can still see the horizon and you can still see the sea. This is the ceramic tile we designed especially for this. And also the walkway, as I was telling you, this is a touristic city, hedonist city, like a city of fun, of leisure, of you know, party, etc. So this is what I was saying. You can sit down and you can still see the views. This is the typical tourist in Benidorm with the Chihuahua, like the elderly people. And I like this picture a lot because it doesn't look like an European city. No, it looks more like an Asian or Latin American. I don't know, something like. So, and a funny story is that the people of the village, the people of Benidorm are so happy about this project that my father says that this is probably the most fulfilling project because they are really, really happy. We had 18 different awards, and the most beautiful award is the award by the citizens of the city. They kind of invented an award to give it to us. So, because they were so happy for that. And they had an idea, the neighbors, they said, what about, because the idea of doing this, of doing these colors, it came a little bit from these shadings, that they are different colors. So when we finished, they said, the neighbors, they said, we're gonna save money and we're gonna put our shades exactly as the color in front. And we say, no, please, don't do it. Don't worry, we don't want it, we like this mixture. So, but it's a funny story that they wanted to contribute and they wanted to do the same colors for the. So once again, I will never get tired of repeating that this is a picture we presented in the competition. This was a picture in the boards, and from this idea to the final result, it is very important that they are as close as different. So this is very important for us. Then again, these geometries we work in other projects. It doesn't have to necessarily be the spine core of the project. It can also be applied, like in this one. This is a very Mediterranean facade. So we work with foldings with these angles. So we have done several projects, like 3 projects with this kind of facade. You know, this Mediterranean intermediate space, indoor, outdoor. So this is a building in Barcelona. And we have done the one in Plaza Lesseps and the one in Vertex. This is a tower in Italy, the Jesolo Tower. We also work with this kind of balustrade, with this intermediate space, and we are evolving. Now I'm going to show you the projects which just recently finished in the last 2-3 years. This is a headquarters using this white material, which is called Parex. It's very sustainable material. It's very good. You can do roofs and you can be roofs and facades. They can be continuous. I go because we have to finish, and I have 4 more projects to show. Super fast. We can skip the questions. This is very domestic. It's very hermetic from outside and very domestic from inside. So the building is like a sculpture from outside, but then it's an office building, so you want to have it more domestic scale. This is the space here. I apologize. I will go. I want to show them, but as quick as possible. This is like a mine. This is like a quarry, and the building is almost like it was taken out and put here like a stone. This is the Media Pro headquarters. The most important thing about this project is that the structure is outside. There is no columns inside, so it's a solidaric membrane, and they look all the same. These columns look the same from the outside, but the trick about this project is that the columns are not equal. They have different thickness of the steel. So some of them are very thick because they have a lot of compression, and some of them are very thin because they are in traction. So it's a solidaric membrane. They help each other, these columns. This is the view from inside because it's an open office space. There's no columns inside, only the stairs. It's in Diagonal Avenue, Media Pro. Media Pro is the company that did Piqui Cristina Barcelona, and they have the movie, and they have the rights of the bar. This is the rendering in the competition, and this is Mies van der Rohe with his cigar, looking at us, watching us. We're doing a good job. These are, well, recording studios. It's a big company, and also it has relation with the university. So this is a university campus. We also work together with other architects. This is the Roca Gallery that I did. It was my first building, and I have a lot of things to talk about this building, but it's done with glass. It's done with glass that it turns 90 degrees. So it's one glass next to the other. It's laminated glass. It has 4,200 LEDs that it lights the LEDs. So at night it looks like this and it moves. It's only white color light. And it's a kind of manifesto again of materials, of how using very traditional materials that have existed in architecture for thousands of years, but how to change their use and use them in a different way. We use ceramic, we use wood. It was an architecture event we had here, a debate on Barcelona with young architects of the city. We organized. Well, and about this facade, it's I have to say, it's incredible, the optical effects. We did mock-ups, etc. And this is the showroom of a company. It's the social headquarters where they receive the visitors. They have a museum of the company. They do all sorts of events. And then upstairs, they have a selection of their best product. So if you have some extra time, which I don't think you do, but if you can go visit it, I will be glad to show it to you or anything. Okay. Then I will explain it with more time so I can go very fast. On Saturday, we'll talk about it. So this is a summer camp. This is for an NGO. This is for a non-governmental organization. This is only 400 euros per square meter. It's very, very cheap material and very cheap construction. And we did it very fast. And it's for children with problems. It's an NGO. We have done several projects. It's children that they have problems with their parents, with drugs, etc. So they go here to have in the summer camp to stay together. So we did this kind of village in the middle of the forest using this sustainable material called Parex, which I recommend you take a look. We're using it in Turkey now. It was invented here in Spain. Parex is an international company, but this picture I like a lot with the children playing, and it's almost like a little village, you know, this is the second house for my uncle. This is the one after the one but last. We have two more projects, this one and the other. This is in the delta of the river Ebro. The other one was in the very north of Catalunya. This is in the very south, of course, as much separated as possible. So this is a very, very cheap house. It's a weekend house of 100 square meters, and it has these 3 pavilions, and I think, very summarizing, we did this house almost in the weekends with my father. We went there in the Saturdays with the contractor. It's a local technique. We had the paella, we worked with him, we did all the works almost like with our own hands, almost. So what I think is very important about this building is that it is not the scale of the building, which is very small. It's the proportions of things, it's the distances between the different entities. This is my uncle, he used the building to do his shots. So very quickly, you can see in the website this project using this white, this is another white material, it's a more traditional material. And basically it's the bedroom, the living room. It's very simple, very cheap, using the ceramic ceramic brick in the facade with this very Mediterranean. And you have this intermediate space which is outside, but it's also like an outdoor lounge, an outdoor living room. And well, he likes to collect furniture from Bali, and also tribal art, so that's it. So he brought the furniture from the island of Bali, and that's the house, no? Light, materials, and landscape, and that's it. And that's where he has breakfast. And this is a beautiful thing because it's a very long plot. So the idea was to arrive and walk all the way with all these palm trees and get to the very end where he can decompress from on Fridays when he arrives from work. He can do this kind of promenade until he reaches the house. And this is the last project. This is a very, very important project for our studio. It's a single family house. You know, single family houses are one of the, probably the most complicated things to do for a family. It's almost, you're not an architect, you're not a psychologist. You have to deal with the couple, you have to deal with the husband and wife. There's a lot of issues. And this is a client that was very important. He trusted us from day one. Let me tell you the last little story, which is that he came and he said, Carlos, I love your architecture, but I really like when you are more like square, like when you are more like rational. I don't like when you start doing these triangles and things. And he said, okay, don't worry, we'll do a rational house, etc. And then we start with this grid of 7 meters by 7 meters, which is a 50 square meters house. But then we told him, look, we're going to do squares, but there is an urban regulation that tells us that the slopes of the roofs needs to have a slope because in the neighborhood you need to put inclined roofs. He said, okay, you can do inclined roofs. So then we kept working. We organized the house in different elements of the programmatic activity. Here is the north. So we wanted to do the nightlife for the northeastern light and the southwest light for the morning. The other way around. In the morning, the northeastern light, and in the evening, the southwestern light. I'm getting confused. But anyway, the house is divided into 2 parts. Then we put this is a 1,500 square meter house for 2 people. So it's a very luxury. It's a kind of almost like a palace. But we wanted to avoid calling it a palace. But this is the kitchen. This is the staff pavilion. This is the guest pavilion. So we did the patios. It's almost like an origami. We thought of this house as a one surface. There's a lot of things to talk about this house, but then that's the model we showed the client when he came, the first model he saw, and he said, what the hell have you done? I told you I wanted square. But we explained him why, and you know what he said? He said, you know what, I don't understand this house, but I think I like this house, and I'm going to trust you, and you go. And this is very, very important because this is the only thing we can do in architecture is we can go as far as we can depending on the client. I mean, the intellectual risk we need to take, it's not only ours, it's our client. So we can go as far as our client wants to go. So the first thing you need to do is find the client that is going to trust you and that is going to go with you. And you have a lot of responsibility there because what you do, it's for him, and he's putting a lot of risk with you guys. So you have to challenge yourselves, but always think that it's not you who's doing this, it's them who's doing this, it's them who's paying for that. And they're going to live here all their lives he's going to live here until he dies. So every day he's going to wake up and he's going to think about you if you make a mistake. But we architects cannot just give whatever they ask us for. There is a Spanish expression that says, you're giving me a cat instead of a rabbit. That comes from the Civil War. That expression, it comes from the Civil War when there was no food, there was no money. So people would go to a restaurant and they would order a rabbit and they would trick them, they would cheat, and they would bring a cat. So when you say somebody's cheating on you, you say, you're giving me a cat instead of a rabbit. Well, we architects, we have to give our clients rabbits instead of cats, because sometimes they ask us to eat cat, and we have to give them a good rabbit. So we have to be the medium, the medium that receives all the inputs and gives something back. And this is our only mission in life. And well, the building is very, very complex. It's a pre-stressed concrete slab. It's a very, very thin 18 centimeter slab. It's very technological. It has this ceramic type that it's 3 millimeters, and it's 3 meters by 8 millimeters, sorry. And it's from Italy. And so once again, from the first idea to the final result. So I'm going to show you the house. It's a very elegant house. It has 2 levels. And the upper level is more the official level, and the underground level is the fun level. It's the place where he has all his hobbies, no? Like the wine, the cinema, and the cars. He collects cars. This is the garden we did with the landscape design architect, Maria Robert. And well, we have used the fine technological, like the Hofe bar, like the Vitroxa windows, etc. All these details. The structure is exposed concrete. So he lives in a very expensive house, but it's exposed concrete with a ceramic tile, which is very traditional from Catalunya, etc. In the bourgeois families to have this ceramic tile we design. These are the different spaces. So what is important is these two levels. There is no like a big stair that connects the upper level from the lower level. There is secret stairs. So he has like secret accesses of different stairs, like this one that connects the library to the cinema downstairs. And from his bedroom, he goes to the gym. He has a little stair that is hidden, so you never know how to get downstairs. So it's like this architectural experience. Like you make trampolines, you play like Escher. You know the artist Escher. You make games and you don't know how to understand the space until you discover it. No? So he likes to collect cars. So we turn the parking space. The parking downstairs is like a museum of his cars. He has the Ferraris and the Porsche, etc. This is some pictures I only show in lectures. We try to never publish them. It's confidential. So, so that's it. This is my client now. This is my friend Ahmed. He's my client from Turkey, and I want to finish this picture because I just left him in the airport yesterday night, and we are doing together this building in Turkey. Which is still confidential, but I can show this image, and it's a very beautiful building. It will be a museum in the future, and it's on the top of the Aegean Sea, on the top of a hill. And the most important thing is this: no? Is this smile. It's a client that is happy, and this is our mission in life. So thank you very much.